I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Abraham George to the Empathy Edge podcast. Dr. George, welcome. I'm so excited for you to share your story and your important work and helping our listeners understand that they can create a ripple effect of impact and change no matter where they sit within their organizations. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. I look forward to our conversation.
And so let's just kick off first. You have such an interesting story. So tell us your story, your journey from Army officer to finance executive to now a social entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about that story and what got you to the work that you're doing now. What's the driving mission and passion behind it?
All right. I was born in southern India by by this ocean, actually. But at the age of 14, I went on to get trained as an officer in the Indian military. And after 4 years of training, I was sent to the Himalayan border with China. That was my first posting at an altitude of 14,000 feet. That was
Wow.
the highest battleground in the world at that time. The
Wow.
Chinese had invaded India through that mountain pass called Sela. Well, there my job was to set up the defensive position, dig bunkers and gun position. I was an artillery officer. And in the 11th month of my stay there, I met with an accident. I was blown up in a dynamite blast,
Oh my.
and I was almost killed. If I was late by a fraction of a second, the blast would have killed me. I had turned around.
Wow.
Um, and I asked myself the question, why was I spared? That was the trigger. But then there were a couple of other things that happened during that time. I was sitting alone, leading my men to do the job, and I would climb small hills up there and sit on top, and the clouds below me, and it's very exciting to be on the top of the roof of the world. And I had long time to contemplate on what was life all about for me.
Hmm.
And I began to question whether I want to spend the rest of my life, in a profession, noble as it is. We all somebody has to do that job, but still I'm being trained to kill someone else, and I was not sure that was my calling.
Hmm.
But anyway, I read two books, and your listeners might be interested in those books. One by Albert Schweitzer, actually his autobiography, then biographies by others. Albert Schweitzer, he won the Nobel Prize. He German who traveled to Equatorial Africa and established a hospital, lived with the animals and the tribals. I found it fascinating at the age of 18. Absolutely a wonderful way to live. And the other one was by the great philosopher Bertrand Russell. He's called a modern philosopher, but he died some 50 years ago. He, in his a book called History of Western Philosophy. He wrote a line which caught me, and that was, there is nothing right about war. It is about who is left.
Mm.
Oh, that was something, and I, I took that to heart and decided that at some point I'll leave the military and get educated properly and start on something that would let me make some money
Hmm.
so that I can do something good.
Hmm.
So within a couple of years, I was able to leave for the United States. I did a couple of masters and a PhD from NYU Stern School of Business, and then I worked for another 2 years for JP Morgan, and then I left to start my own company. For the next 20 years plus, I had my own business, started from the basement of my apartment, went on to become the market leader in the US and in Europe too. In my narrow field, which was corporate international finance, in the corporate treasury area. And my whole goal during that entire time was, of course, create a great company and do well and be a leader. But beyond that, I wanted to make enough money to do my passion, which was service.
Yeah.
And I had by then decided that I leave my career and go somewhere like Albert Schweitzer did. That's why I'm in this remote place and start from the beginning.
Right. Right.
And
And
that is my
what caused you to choose, first let's tell people a little bit about the main initiative that you work on, the school Shanti
bow.
Bhavan. Tell us a little bit about that and what the mission of that is.
Right. Um, Growing up, I had observed in the villages of India very severe poverty. Don't forget, this is like 50 years ago. India had just become independent, and famine and was rampant. Um, in fact, America was helping India feed Indian population with wheat and milk powder and things like that. Anyway, I wanted to find a solution to at least reducing the poverty on a small scale. And during my doctoral work in NYU, I was focusing on various ways of doing it. Those days the emphasis was on foreign aid, whether it is bilateral or IMF and so on, and handouts essentially to countries that are struggling to come up.
Mhm.
And the uh, other thing that bothered me tremendously was discrimination based on social status.
Mhm.
In India, you probably heard of the caste discrimination.
Mhm.
Some people, not a few, 300 million people today, they fall into a category called Dalits. They're formerly called the untouchables. And another 600 million people are called lower caste. And they don't have the financial means to get proper education. They are not treated well in their villages and so on. So their children don't get educated well. They go back uh, to the same huts uh, with the kind of incomes they earn.
Mhm.
And this has been going on for 1,500 years.
Right.
And I wanted to find a way to again contribute to reducing social injustice.
Mhm.
And I came to the conclusion, I give a lot of credit to NYU for making me understand that the way to uh, dealing with social injustice is through economic opportunity for those people.
Mhm.
And the way to get economic opportunity was through excellent education. So for me, handouts and foreign aid were not the solutions. It's excellent education for the
Mhm.
poorest of the poor
Right.
that they can go on to have good jobs and bring up
Right.
their families. And then they will move on to better living conditions and the social injustice will disappear.
Of course. So that's the work now is the
That is the
school
work
that
I'm doing.
helps
I take children
break the
from the
cycle.
poorest of the poor.
Right. That helps break the cycle of poverty. Can you, your story is just fascinating. I mean, and I really connect with this desire to make money in order to do good. That is very much my driver in why
Right,
I try to make my work and my business successful, not just so I can have more, but so that
right.
I can give more to organizations and people and groups that are on the front lines doing the work and making things happen. And I have,
Right.
I have friends of mine who are very socially conscious, and we talk a lot about the fact that not everyone is built to be on the front line. but all
Right.
of us can play a role in helping those and empowering those people to do the work that they
Correct.
need to do. I want to talk about your ability. You know, you've been in finance, you've been in sort of the white collar world, and you're taking a lot of what not only what you earned, but what you learned in those spaces to social entrepreneurship. And I just want to mention for listeners here, I'm going to put a link to a past episode with Woodson Martin where he talked about being able to be a philanthropist while you are still, you know, earning a good, comfortable living. So I'm going to put
Right.
a link to that in the show notes for folks because that was another interesting story of someone, you know, doing really well financially and career wise, but using that to give back and then bringing
Right.
others along. So I want to talk about, you know, a blueprint. You know, you've sort of developed a blueprint for leaders to create change. Um, how can entrepreneurs or leaders or anybody really take action to create that positive impact in their communities? What are some of the guideposts that you have in the blueprint that you've developed that you can share with our listeners today?
Right. Those who are working for companies or who own companies, they have some power to help the communities they serve. If you are in a town or a suburb somewhere in United States, the communities around there, your employees, where they come from, and you can certainly do something good, whether it's improving at the schools they have, any number of things.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and if you have overseas subsidiaries in various countries, especially poor countries, those subsidiaries are making money there. They should extend themselves to doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that sense, for larger companies, multinational companies, it's a global contribution. And nowadays, they call it the CSR or corporate social responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
CSR programs. And in a country like India, the government requires that every company sets aside 2% of its profits to uh, non-governmental organizations like mine. They have to distribute that money to thousands of them, so we get a small part of the pie.
Mm-hmm.
But at least there is something going to NGOs who are trying to do social work
Mm-hmm.
because companies are not equipped to enter into the social arena directly. They have to use someone, agent like us, to do the
Mm-hmm.
work for them, but they can monetarily contribute.
Right.
So that is one way, if you are an employee or an owner, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other is, of course, your own money. We all, you know, we start businesses, so we make money.
Mm-hmm.
And one has to ask at that point, how much money is enough for a
Right.
good living?
Right.
Um, your purpose in life cannot be making more money all the time. That's not a purpose.
Right.
You have to find something meaningful to do to impact other people's lives. And that's what I discovered in my
Yeah.
early childhood, that I should devote my life to improving the people who are suffering, people
Mm-hmm.
who don't have the opportunity, uh, and people who would, you know, make they will find my help valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I would urge anyone who is doing financially well
Mm-hmm.
to consider making a contribution to social good.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen. I'm curious, would you describe yourself as naturally empathetic? Do you think
Uh,
you've
I
always been that way, or do you think that's something you developed as you got more education and got more exposure? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I would, when I look back, I was fairly, fairly empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, especially, my father too, but my mother more so, always cultivated that in us. I remember somebody came and said he can't read well, he can't read anything because he doesn't have glasses, and I had hardly anything. I was hardly 14. I somehow gathered up the pennies I had and gave him that money. So it went back very early.
Hmm.
But the thing about empathy and doing good, see, the first level of emotion I find is sympathy for someone. You feel bad about somebody's
Mm,
situation. Then you have empathy, in which you uh, um, want to do something. Then you have compassion, that you really get into that person's shoes and you really plan out something. But all those things are fine. But until you act on it, and I call
right,
it
right.
compassion in action, you haven't done anything for the other person.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. From my
And that's
work,
what I would urge individuals
yeah.
to think about how they can help others by their actions, not by words.
For 100%. In my work and research, actually, sympathy and empathy are two different things.
Right,
Empathy is really just about understanding someone's context and understanding their perspective. But to your
right,
point, you can practice that, but
right,
until that information gives you a next right step to take, an action to take, that action that you take is compassion. Compassion is
correct,
empathy and action. So I love what you're
right,
saying about it's not just enough, that's we talk about this on the show all the time. It's not just enough to cultivate it and practice it, although that is very important. But then what are you going to do with that information that you're getting about someone's context and about their point of view? And it doesn't have to be, an action where you're doing whatever they want. It's just
right,
about your next step is informed by what that person might be thinking or going through. So I love that. And
right.
I love that you're able to recognize that that hit you at a young age. Um, but the good news is we can strengthen that muscle as adults as well. Um,
Right, right. I just want to say one more thing about this. Uh, some people don't have the opportunity or are not willing to leave their corporate jobs and get involved.
mhm,
And the best they can do is to associate themselves with people like us who are doing some work, provide guidance, provide monetary help,
mhm,
and participate in, some events to encourage us, to
mhm.
motivate us. All those things matter. It is not essentially that they have to quit jobs like I did and
Yeah,
do crazy things.
right.
So that's important for people to know. There are so many different ways they can do good to the world.
Exactly, exactly. So let's talk about that is this idea of why you can have a bigger impact than you think. I talk a lot about the ripple effect and your ability to impact your sphere of influence wherever you are within the organization. You talk about the compounding effect of helping 100 people who help 100 other people. Can you talk to us about your work and your from your vantage point of how
Yes.
you get that ripple effect started?
Right. I call it the multiplier effect. The same word as ripple. What we are doing is taking children from the poorest to the poor and giving them world-class education and very good upbringing. I just want to add on something. Uh, the effect of what we have done in the last 30 years since we founded, the kids are studying in places like Princeton, MIT, Harvard, Dartmouth,
Oh my goodness.
University of Chicago, Stanford, in America, in addition to great institutions in India. So the first point I want to make is you can bring up children from the poorest to the poor, and they have the inner potential to succeed. Now, one of the things we teach them while they're growing up said, listen, you came to me or came into my hands at the age of 4.
Hmm.
And you have been with me around the year. They go for vacation for 2 months and
Hmm.
1 month during the mid-year.
Okay. So they're going to
So
school full
nine,
time, full
yeah,
year.
full
Yeah.
time, 9 months, and I have them captive 24 hours, you know. So there's so many. Just before this meeting, I was with a bunch of 12th graders talking about, various things they
Uh-huh.
should cultivate. But anyway, uh, one of the things I emphasize to them, you are beneficiaries of someone else's generosity. You received the help that I was able to seek from donors in the United States or India, anywhere,
Hmm.
and they made it possible. Apart from the money that I had originally given, today I had to reach out to others to help me. Um, and you are beneficiaries of that, and you have a moral and ethical obligation to
Hmm.
do the same for others.
Hmm.
And so I have given them this 100 rule that you mentioned. That is, in your lifetime, you should help 100 others. And that's not a very large number. You know,
Hmm.
someone with a lot of wealth can help a million people for that matter.
Yeah.
And they, in turn, do the same thing for the next 100. And
Hmm.
before you know, one kid has impacted thousands of people.
Hmm.
And for a company or someone working in the corporation, if you can create that ripple effect, as you call it,
Hmm.
um, and change society, that's a tremendous contribution by the organization, the company itself,
Hmm.
and and uh, and the individual who is making it happen.
Yeah.
So I would urge everyone to look at ways where you can achieve that. In my area, which is education. I feel education is the key to many things. You can feed somebody a meal or things like that, but they will disappear. If
Hmm.
you buy clothes for them, sure, they will wear good clothes for a few days, but that will disappear. But education, you can't take it away.
Hmm.
And so the quality education and also proper upbringing, they have to learn to fit into the society at
Hmm.
large. And so those are the two ingredients of
Hmm.
upbringing. And that's
Hmm.
what we do in every family. We bring up
Hmm.
our kids well and educate them. And you have to do the same
Yeah.
thing for others. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and I love this on so many levels because I talk a lot about the exponential impact that leaders have. So even if you're a leader within a team and you've only got 5 people on your team, think
Yes,
about those 5 people and their families and their communities and
yes,
then the people they're going to lead in the future. That's the
right,
example. That's the leadership legacy that you leave behind. And
right,
so, if you want to be an awful leader, just because you think that's the way to get things done, not only
right,
the mental toll you're taking on people, but the model you're creating for them has a negative ripple effect on
right,
their own, when they leave work and they take that home with them or they take that back to their communities, or someday when they're in charge and they are leading a team of 5 people or 10 people or 20 people,
right,
your ability to leave a legacy as a leader of what
right,
is what is my best, most highest purpose in how I can lead this team and how I can lead it with care and compassion, but also
right,
still deliver results, drive results. I can do both
right.
and create that model for them so that they see what's possible. And I love that you're doing, the work you do in education, the ripple effect it has. Let's just talk about that for a second because I want
Yes,
people to understand. I spoke with you that I do a lot about making the business case for empathy. There is
right,
a business case to be made for investing in education.
right,
So talk to us a little bit about downstream. How does that impact all of us when we, even if we're not in that socioeconomic space, when we take the time and invest the resources in quality education, what does that do for society at large? What does that do for the economy, for the culture?
right. There are companies who help us in India, big names, the Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Ernst and Young, ExxonMobil. And what they are looking for is to help an organization like us that's educating and turning out good, well qualified young people they can hire.
Right.
And so they are very interested in hiring our kids. So
Mm-hmm.
right away they benefit from the money they put in. They get good employees.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, then I think they also want their staff to see the importance of doing something humane. We can't be all about money and productivity and new innovation products and so on. There has to be a heart in some of these things.
Hmm.
And it is nice to see that employees themselves, they are involved in the welfare of someone else's kids,
Hmm.
how well they do. So I think a corporation with a heart is
Hmm.
better than a corporation that is stone-like. I think there is something they benefit by
Right.
having a culture of being helpful to others.
Right.
Uh, and I would urge company managers, to consider that as a proposition of the idea of helping others, helping your own employees'
Hmm.
character.
Hmm.
And then, of course, you are impacting society. If you
Right.
have people producing more productive rather than just, struggling in the village and so on. And now these young kids go to MIT or Harvard and come back. They are very productive citizens.
Right.
Uh, and they can transform. In my opinion, I've started a second Shanti Bhavan, not too far from here.
Hmm.
And I'd originally thought I will start 100 Shanti Bhavans, and I was very foolish to think that was possible. But if others would join and we
Yeah.
create 100 Shanti Bhavan, the country would be very different.
Right.
You would have the ripple effect that you talked about,
Hmm.
and now you will see millions of people, well educated, highly productive,
Right.
turning out. I'm working for these great companies
Right.
and being impacting society. So this is all just not pipe dreams. These are
Hmm.
things that can be achieved
Yeah.
if we all put our heart
Well,
together.
well, and we raise the standard of living, we raise the GDP, we raise all of these things when we have an
They're
educated
consumers, great
citizenry. They are
consumers.
consumers, but they're also creators. and
Correct.
and that actually raises the level of the standard of living and the economy for everybody gets lifted up. So
Right.
I really feel that empathy is the fuel and the catalyst for that kind of work. When we open our eyes and realize we're not the only people in the room, we're not the only
Right.
people in the world, and how can we empower and not provide, because that's not what we're talking about here, but empower and ignite other people so that what is it they say? The rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Right. Right.
I love that. Well, Dr. George, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your work and your philosophy and really giving us a call to action to bring more care and compassion and heart, as you said, into even our most corporate environments, even into the work that we do, no matter what field we're in, no matter what industry we're in, that we have that ability to impact change. So I will have all your links in the show notes, and folks can find out more about your foundation and all about Shanti Bhavan as well and the school. But for anyone who's on the go right now, where's the best place they can learn more about you and your work?
The easiest way is to, in Google, type my name, Abraham George. Abraham, you can remember Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, right? So
That's great.
Abraham George, and you will
Okay,
run into several links.
great.
You'll run into Shantivan. So I don't need to
Great.
give any websites or anything.
Perfect. Yes. And the website is drabrahamgeorge.com. So you can get all the places from there. Dr. George, thank you so much for your time and your
Thank
insights
you. I
today.
just want to say that what you're doing is amazingly great because what you are doing is pointing out something beyond productivity and creative innovation and so on,
Mhm.
and AI and other things. You are talking about humanity and human conduct, and I admire you for what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Empathy Edge podcast. If you like what you heard, you know what to do. Please rate and review or share with a friend or a colleague. And until next time, please remember that cash flow, creativity, and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Take care and be kind.